All right, back at it again. Ozonics, Killerwinds. Gosh, I don't know why that's such a tongue twister.
You want me to do it?
No, I do it. That's my part.
Just let me do it once.
Oh, no. I think it sounds better if I do it. Because you go like this. Yo, hey, Ozonics, Killerwinds podcast. I'm Nick.
All right, back again. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. I'm Nick Simon. That was pretty good, though.
That was pretty good.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, back at it again. No, you basically just did it. I can't do it again. You stole my line.
I nailed it, too.
Oh, man. I think I just said I'll tell you what. One thing I've noticed here lately is I really like having our dog Gus, but he's starting to become a shed monster. I looked down at my shorts this morning on the way to work, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yikes.
I need to get like a lint roller or something. Just so I have a lint roller in my truck.
That was the worst when I worked at that car dealership detailing cars where they had dogs in them.
Yeah.
Just covered in dog hair.
Yeah.
So hard to get that stuff out.
Yeah.
Made me never want a dog.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll tell you what.
I love our dog, but he don't shed.
See, that's
and
the
he's
thing.
just a chiller. He just hangs out.
Yeah, there are non-shedding dogs like poodles, golden doodles now are non-shedding, non-allergenic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bucky will shed a little bit, but not.
Yeah, I haven't noticed Gus as much. I mean, he's almost a year old, so he's kind of feel like he's like less of a puppy, more of a dog.
Yeah.
And I definitely kind of feel like I notice it now that I feel like when I pet him, I see.
Yeah.
And I think they shed more in the spring and the fall.
Yeah, definitely.
When their kind of coat is changing over.
Yep.
But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, that's not even what we're here to talk about today.
No, not at all.
Should we just start over? Should I
Okay.
just start? All right. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
What you didn't see is I couldn't get that out the first like 4 times, and then you said it real nice.
I'll probably leave it in.
Probably. Yeah. All right, so what we're talking about today is deer meat processing.
Yep.
And I guess it doesn't even have to be as much specifically deer meat, but I kind of feel like that's what we're on the verge of right now. Well, we're on the verge of elk hunting. So we might be elk meat processing here sooner than later.
I think a good way to put it is like just after you get your deer. Basically the process of once you go find your deer, gut it out.
Well, even right there.
Oh, yeah, even how you gut it out.
I think basically we're going to start from when you walk up to it.
Yes.
After you do high fives.
Yep.
After you do pictures.
Little dance, maybe.
Yep. Little jigga. After that, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny, this actually kind of came up all of a sudden. I'm actually pretty fortunate. I've been able to do some depredation hunting in Iowa.
Yep.
So basically the long story short version of that is that I get to hunt during the summertime.
Yeah.
There's a landowner that I work with that has really, really bad crop damage. He works with the state of Iowa, and there's a depredation biologist that I also coordinate with.
Yep.
And they come out and they assess the crop damage, and then they give out these, they're actually not even called like deer tags, they're called shooting permits.
Yeah.
And so it works out great. I love to hunt, and so I go out there with my bow. I can also go out there with a gun, whatever it might be. And I was fortunate a few nights ago to shoot, a deer.
Yeah.
And it was like 95 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny. We got to talking about after, like the minute after we shot the deer and we walked up on it, I had Jet with me and he was all excited, but I could just feel the, almost like the timer starting to click down because I was like, man, it is way too hot.
Yeah.
And instantly you could see the bugs just boom. They're landing on it. They're starting to chew on everything that they can get their hands on. And I was like, man, we need to get this deer out of here. We need to get it gutted up. We need to get it cooled down.
Yeah.
And we need to get cut up.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't take long in heat like that for meat to spoil.
Yeah, and I have some experience with that too, just with hunting in Wisconsin, because it opens September 15th,
Yeah.
And a lot of times those first couple days of the season are pretty hot.
Yes.
And there's been a couple times where I remember I shot a buck on October 5th during youth season. And it was the same thing. I mean, we had to get that thing out of there like now.
Yes.
We got it out and packed it full of ice just to, keep it good, because it was a hot day.
Yeah.
Really hot day. So another interesting thing about that is, we talk about the process of what you do after you find it. And it seems like with your situation, it kind of changes probably because, what you do might be a little different if it's middle of December compared to middle of July. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's funny. It actually changes even more than that.
Yeah.
It changes from what I do in July, August to comparatively to what I do in like September, October, November to what I do in December, January, because I don't have a heated garage.
Yeah.
So if I hang a deer in December, I'm going to go out there and there's a good chance it's going to be froze.
Yeah.
And then that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yep. That's actually a really funny thing because what I end up doing is I end up putting it in I have like it's actually an ice house or ice fishing sled.
Yeah.
So I'll take it off the hook in my garage and I'll put it in this ice sled and then I'll drag it over to my neighbor's house and he's got a heated garage and I'll just stick it in there for the evening, come back the next morning, then it's thawed out.
Yep.
But yeah, it's crazy how much the way I process and prepare meat changes throughout the season based on the temperatures. It really can make a difference. And like you're talking about, not only just Wisconsin, I mean, look at Colorado.
Yeah.
August 15th, antelope season opens, right? I used to guide in Colorado and I think for a lot of the guides, getting the meat out of the field was what we were always thinking about as the clients were just really stoked and excited about their antelope. It was okay. And we're not even talking like 90 degrees. We're talking 100 plus degrees and there's no shade, so it's not like you can just pull over and find a spot to get out of the heat. I mean, it's a, let's get some pictures. Let's get this thing field dressed and then let's get it back.
Yeah.
Let's get it back to camp. Let's get this thing cut up because it just doesn't take long for meat to turn.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yep.
And then again, the other thing about that too is what we're all describing here is hoping that you can make a one shot, ethical, whatever you want to call it, type kill that you can get something down right now. But if you've got to, like sometimes happens when it's bow hunting, if you got to blood trail something or you got to leave something, then you really get in a pickle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how does it end up laying down? I can't say how many times we would have guys that would shoot elk and elk. I don't know. I mean, I think all animals do this, but I felt like we'd have a lot of elk that would bed down and put its legs right underneath of them. And then when they die, they just kind of fall over. Mm-hmm. Well, man, you talk about just letting the internal heat of that animal just like cook the back straps, especially tops of the shoulders, along the bones, in their pelvis. It can really, really just that heat. It just tries to get out and then it spoils the meat from inside out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It can get really tricky.
Yeah.
But one thing I was going to talk about first is, one of the things that you and I kind of do a little differently. And it's funny. I used to do how you do it when you actually field dress. I don't know why this is kind of a big Midwestern thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I never really thought about it. But when I first got out to Colorado, it was in the springtime. We were turkey hunting. And then when we got into the fall, it was antelope season and elk season, everything else. A bunch of the guides that I was working with, we were all around for an antelope and they were like, we want to see how you field dress that thing. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, I feel just like everybody does. And they're like, well, we'll see. And, I do what I do. And then I got down to I got down to where I was to its back legs. And you cut down the middle here of its belly and you get down towards its crotch. And then what I had always done before is I went and there's always a little bit of meat that basically goes over their pelvic bone.
Yep.
Under that pelvic bone is where their large intestine goes out towards their anus, right? So I would always cut through that meat right there, and it's kind of it's satisfying thing, right? You cut it, it just kind of just splits right open.
Yeah.
And then I would take my knife, or I had this little zip saw, and I would really tough, and I would cut, a canal out through that pelvic bone.
Yep.
And it was funny when I got to that point, all the guys kind of started laughing at me like, oh yeah, man, I can tell you're from Iowa. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, that's not how we do it at all. I'm like, really? I'm like, well, I guess you learn something new every day. I'm like, show me how you guys do it. So then the next antelope we had, and it's really the way that I do it now. So instead of doing it that way, where I start kind of at the sternum and go down towards the crotch, get to that meat on the pelvic bone, cut it like we were talking about. What I do now is I actually start at the anus and I cut around the anus. I basically grab it and then you kind of have to cut in there a little bit to get that to let loose of the large intestine. I pull that large intestine out quite a ways. And a lot of times I'll just cut it off, or you can kind of stuff it back in, one or the other. And then what I do is I kind of start down towards the crotch and I actually cut upwards to the sternum.
Yep.
Being very, very careful, just going through, just barely getting my fingers under there. And then just kind of, how you do the V, you V it all the way up to the sternum. And then once I've done that, I kind of just lay the deer on the animal on its side, hold up the one side. I'll cut the diaphragm the best I can. I'll kind of reach in. There's all those digestive organs kind of come up towards the top of its spine, and there's like a piece of muscle there that kind of connects it all by the diaphragm. I'll cut that. And then literally you can just pull all of that out.
Yeah.
And then you can pull the large intestine out that you had already kind of cut around. It really comes out pretty easy.
Yeah.
And if you've made a, right behind the shoulder shot at this point, you don't have really hardly any blood on you.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how really blood free you stay. And then I'll cut the diaphragm the rest of the way. And usually this is where I get bloody. I'll reach up in there, make sure there's not a broadhead if I have to be aware of that. But then I'll reach in there, kind of free up the heart and the lungs the best I can. I'll just cut that windpipe, get my finger in that, and then just kind of rip it all out. And then the nice thing is you can just kind of tip the animal up and you let that blood kind of flow through the rest of the cavity and just kind of wash it all out.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that, the reason I'm telling this whole kind of big long story is because when I did it where I cut through that meat on the pelvic bone and cut it before, what those guys said is they're like, man, look at all that meat that you're exposing.
Yeah.
Like, look at all that all that meat, you're going to have to take that off when you're all done.
Yeah.
And I'd never really thought about that way. I knew I was taking it off, but I just didn't really think about it.
Right.
But when you do what I just described about going around the anus and just leaving that pelvic bone intact and leaving those quarters connected, it really protects that meat.
Oh, yeah.
And then you don't expose it until you get home.
Right.
Or to wherever you might be going.
Right.
Even if you're quartering it out, you can even quarter it. If you're quartering it out, you're going to expose it.
Yeah.
But it just seems like you expose it for a shorter amount of time when you do it that way. And it really just preserves that meat because inside those thighs, that is really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no reason to let it go to waste.
Yeah.
But when you let it dry out like that, like you're not going to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to trim that down pretty good and throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like, we do it that way. We cut the pelvic bone every single time.
It's not like there's a wrong way to do it.
Exactly.
I mean, you can do it that way too. I mean, a lot of people do. It's just that there's just something else to think about.
Yeah, and I think like the reason that, or not really the reason, but like I've noticed like when you do that, like when it comes to cleaning them out, like with like a hose or something, just getting them cleaned out, it's really not, I mean, it just kind of washes right through that. But I do 100% understand what you're saying. Like, I mean, think about that. Once you cut that pelvic bone and, kind of open them up a little bit, all those guts and everything is going to be going right over that meat that you just had exposed,
Yes.
So, I mean, if there's any way that you can keep it clean, I mean, that's a huge advantage just because you get that much more meat out of it.
Well, and the reality is I don't think any of us mean to, but everybody would tell you at some point you nick something.
Oh, yeah.
You
exactly.
know what I mean? Like all of a sudden you hear the terrible noise, right? Psst, you're like, oh. And then all of a sudden you nick something. Well, just like you're saying, when you start pulling everything out or it starts falling out over, it's a lot easier to wipe it off the hide than it is the deer meat. You literally just feel like when you wipe it off the meat, you're just rubbing it in. And that's meat that you've cut.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like you're going with the grain. You see the grain of that meat. So you're really just rubbing it in. Yeah. And so it gets to be a real trick.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing with gutting deer is I overthink everything and it takes me so long.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm terrible at it.
Huh.
I'm really bad. Normally ends up Walt just stepping, get out of here. I'm just like with everything I do.
My biggest thing that I think about when I'm gutting a deer is don't cut myself. Don't cut myself. Don't cut myself. Yeah. I've actually got a couple, which another random fact, I have a weird, I don't know if it's a phobia, but it's like some sort of issue with human blood.
It's a phobia.
I don't think it's a phobia. I think it's actually like a post-traumatic syndrome type of thing from years ago. It's a longer story, not for here and now. But basically now when I see, it wasn't always like this. It turned into this, but now I kind of have a thing about human blood. It really freaks me out.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I can gut a deer all day long. No big deal. I love checking stuff out and seeing, I double lunged it. I hit it in the heart, bottom heart. I hit the liver. I cut the diaphragm. Like it's really interesting to learn that.
Yeah.
But it's funny because if I like nick my finger, I'm like, oh.
No, I'm the same way. I mean,
I get real freaked out.
Not to that extent, but like you said, like I can stand there and watch a guy cut out a deer, and it's cool to go in and see where you're hitting stuff. But if I see anything with human stuff, it's like, whoa, I do not want to see that. Yeah, it's funny.
I'll tell you what. One of the things that I would also say that I've started to do, and I actually did this the other night, and especially on a whitetail. And again, I'm shooting a lot of does, so it's not like this is a 200-inch whitetail. Mm-hmm. That's like 6.5 years old. That's a donkey, you know? But I'll tell you one thing that I do a lot too is if I can, like that night I won't field dress it until I get it in the back of my truck.
Yeah.
Actually.
I remember you saying that.
Yep. So like what I'll do is and sometimes it can be a little bit trick to get a deer in the back of the truck, but you manhandle it. Get the deer in the back of the truck And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put its head towards the front, and then I honestly have like gear ties that I'll kind of wire tie a leg just to kind of keep it open. And then the nice thing about that is it's kind of feel like you're working smarter rather than harder.
Yeah.
Because instead of bending over, being on one knee and everything else, everything is kind of at waist level.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I can just stand on the side of the truck and I can do everything, and then I can just kind of let it flop on the ground, or before it flops, I can kind of grab it and move it off to the side.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to after I get the vitals out, then it's nice because I can just kind of lift it up and let it kind of drain.
Exactly.
It does usually end up making my tailgate kind of nasty, and back of my truck looks terrible. But yeah.
No, and I think another, kind of statement to that too is I feel like that's nice because I just feel like you're always losing knives in the grass or something. That there you got like a nice little workstation. You just got it all right there.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty nice actually.
Well, and that's another thing I would say, just a little fun fact. I know this seems silly, but when you go to buy a knife, get one with an orange handle.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, it is a lot easier to find an orange knife, because what you do is you cut for a while, you set it over here, and you cut, and then it slips off, and you look back, you're like, I set it there. Yeah. And you're like, where's it now? And then you're looking on the ground. Actually, the outdoor edge that I have, it was given to me, and it's black. And I can't say how many times I'm like, gosh, I knew I was going to lose that thing one of these days. But because black, it's just harder to find. Yeah, that bright orange is handy.
And then somehow it ends up under the deer. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Couldn't find it the entire time with the deer. Oh, there it is. It was somehow laying under it.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fun.
But no, so I guess getting away from just the field dressing part of it, like you said, just a little nugget to think about. Not like there's a right or wrong way, but I think the other thing that I would say is like the other night, what I did is I didn't have ice with me. When I was in Colorado, a lot of times we would all carry coolers with, if we had the chance to run into town during the day, we drop guys off, then we go get a breakfast or something. I get a couple bags of 20-pound bags of ice, put them in the cooler that I could stuff inside of the antelope just to try to keep, especially the back straps.
Yeah.
Right. Because that a lot of times will get really hot.
Yeah.
Because if you were trying to set a deer on its back and splay its legs open to let air as you're driving down the road get to it, then those back straps are kind of cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we would put ice inside of the cavity. I know you were talking about that too. But again, the other night I didn't have ice, so that's what I did. I just got the deer in the back of the truck. I have my cart that I carry just in case I need it, but I kind of put that right next to it, and then I wedged the legs out, and then because again it was a doe that I wasn't going to mount or anything, I wasn't going to use the cape. Then I cut through the sternum, and then I just used a stick and kind of opened it up to try to let that heat escape a little bit more.
Definitely.
Because again, the more you can get it cooled down, get air to it, get air moving over it, even when it was like so hot, it's still better than nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, like I was saying, like in September and stuff like that, it can be pretty warm, and I can't tell you how many times we got a deer hanging up, and we hanging up from the back legs, obviously, and then that ice just sits perfectly right in their cavity there. So yeah, we do that all the time.
Yeah,
especially early season. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I guess kind of moving into the next phase of it, and I think what this whole discussion is based around is the fact that we were talking about this the other day. I love to hunt deer. I love hunting. I love bow hunting. I love all hunting. I mean, geez, if I can just be out in the woods or be in the mountains or be somewhere, like sign me up, right? But I think what I enjoy almost as much as that comes in a very, very close second is I love giving deer meat and giving venison away. I'll tell you what, I'm a gift giver. That's just how I am. I love to give gifts. And so I love giving deer meat away. Yeah. Like there's something about that just really makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And it's worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I said, Susie here in the office, it wasn't last year. Last year, I think she only took a couple, but the year before, Susie took 12 deer from me.
Susie.
She had to buy an extra freezer. I mean, she was on a roll. It was awesome. But yeah, so, I mean, she took a ton of deer from me. And she processed them for herself. Well, I would process them, and then we'd take the meat locker for her or for her son or for her sister.
Yep.
It was a lot of people. even Sheila that we work with, she actually had a couple deer processed last year, and she had it processed in deer hamburger, and she took all the hamburger to her church and just put all of it in the freezer at the church. They actually, which it made me feel really good. The other day, she said they had a gal that came into their church on Sunday and was in a real tough spot. And she talked to the pastor after and was like, hey, is there anything that you guys can help me? Like anything would be great. And they actually went and gave her a bunch of deer venison.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, which
awesome.
I was like, heck yeah, you know. That's one of the things that I'm really proud of with the state of Iowa, right? We have what they call the Hush program.
Yep.
So you can take deer meat into certain processors, and the state will help pay pay. I'm not sure the exact logistics of it, but to get the meat processed, and they give that meat to people that need it.
Yeah.
People that need food.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's pretty awesome. I take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, and it's I think that's kind of something that everybody takes pride in, and it might not be giving it away, but it might just be, you know, eating what they harvested.
Yes.
And that's how I am. I mean, you kill way more deer than I do. You know, I'm lucky to kill 2, maybe even 3 deer a year. But it feels really good to go to your freezer and grab something that you know that you harvested and cook it up and stuff. Because that, I mean, at the end of the day, that is why we do it.
Absolutely.
You know, it feels really good, and it's a lot of fun. And I think, like, a lot of people who might not be into hunting, I feel like that's a big aspect that they don't really realize. You know, it's so much more than just going out and killing a deer.
Yeah.
Like, it's so awesome to have that and, you know, be able to eat it and stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. So.
Yeah. No, I would 100% agree. I think a lot of people that are non-hunters, or just like, I have a lot of family and friends that don't hunt, and they are very open-minded, but they don't really get it.
Yeah.
You know, and then that question comes up a lot. It's like, so, like, what do you do with it after you shoot it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I eat it.
Yeah.
Like, you do? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you come to my house and we have spaghetti, it's going to be deer hamburger.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
that's just how it is. Or if you go in the fridge, there's going to be deer sticks in there pretty much all year round. Or you go here, there's deer sticks in there.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it is.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty cool. But like we've talked about kind of in the field. We were actually at my house the other day, and I got to kind of show you a little bit of my setup.
Yep.
And I think everybody kind of has a different way of doing it. The way I've done it the last how many years is I just put a gambrel in my garage.
Yeah.
And I have a cable that's kind of pulleyed up a couple different times.
Yep.
I know there's something about if you change the direction of a pulley so many times, it increases the amount of weight that you can lift. And so I can't say that I figured that out. My neighbor helped me with that part, because I was just going to make it one way. He's like, oh, you should change directions. And that helped a lot.
Yeah.
But then I've got a crank, and I can crank it all the way down and set it right on the ground and connect it right to the legs. And then I can just crank it right back up.
Yep.
Works really, really good.
Yeah. And we, like Cole was saying, and we filmed the entire thing, kind of showing it around, and we'll actually throw that into the podcast right here. Bing.
Yeah. Freezer's out of commission because of a raccoon. See this right here? This is what happens when you leave your garage door open too many times, and then you and your son decide, you know what, you're going to put a box trap in here and you're going to catch raccoon. And you put the box trap on here because you could tell he was climbing on there. Well, then he got back at me and decided to, I don't know how he didn't get electrocuted, but he unplugged it probably, and then he chewed through it. And I'm not an electrician, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But yeah, so this is kind of my setup. This is my redneck deer butchering shop. I literally just went to the hardware store and bought a bunch of cable, bought a pulley, and then I got a gapper right there, and then literally just lower it right down. Goes up to the ceiling. Reinforce it with a 2x4 up there and a couple pulleys. Then I can drag a deer and hook the deer up. And then see, it's got a spot where it goes in every single time. Just like that. Tell me you butcher deer in your garage without telling me you butcher deer in your garage. That's not dirt. That's a blood spot. Does that make me look like a serial killer? Maybe a little.
How long have you been doing this here?
Oh, geez, that's a great question. Close to. Actually, I bet I've been butchering deer in the garage. I bet I've been butchering deer in my garage now for probably, I don't know, 10 plus years. You can see I've got this old. That's an old floor mat from an old truck. I will try to set that down and put the deer's head on there. And then when I crank it up, a lot of the blood will drip. But obviously, as you go by, it ends up. Look at this. It's just stained, dude. It's just nasty. There's like a good coating. I've tried to power wash it. If we ever sell this house, somebody's gonna think I was like a serial killer or something. But I'm gonna be all excited. Oh baby, that air feels good. Oh baby. There you go. It's always a good thing to put deer meat with more deer meat. This is actually the last of M for moose. That's actually my moose meat from Alaska. I still got a couple of those. Not for sale. That's important. That means deer meat, baby. What else do I got in here? Not for sale. All those are pork chops. That right there, HB, that's moose hamburger. I got a couple of those left too.
I do too.
Do ya?
Yep.
Yeah, I got a bunch of deer sticks in here. There you go. Here, that's a funny thing.
Good kill from last year.
Deer meat and pizza rolls.
Hey, how you doing?
Gus was out in the garage the other night when I cut up that deer, and he didn't like it. He wouldn't watch. He sat the other way. I think he knew what was going on, but for some reason he just didn't like it. Did you? You sat out there with me, but you didn't like it. Did you? That'll be a good little clip, huh? When it comes to deer hunting, obviously we all think about shooting the deer, but I know for me, I get just as much enjoyment out of butchering the deer in my garage, just like we are right now, like putting the meat in the back of my truck and driving it to the meat locker. You know, I love to harvest deer, but man, I really enjoy getting the meat processed, giving it to my friends and family. You know, if you've ever heard of like the 5 love languages, my love language is giving gifts. So for me, it works out pretty good with deer meat. I honestly will give deer meat to anybody that asks. So works out pretty good. Dude, you could feel the cold air. There you go.
Where are we?
Just got to the Elma locker, taking the deer meat in. Booyah!
All right, thanks for watching.
Yeah. My disclaimer, if you just got done watching the part where I'm explaining my garage setup, the one thing I would say is if you start cutting up deer in your garage from the very beginning, just be more diligent about cleaning up the blood on the ground. Because at first you think it's cool because you're like, yeah, deer blood on my garage floor. Like, heck yeah. Gritty. But then after a while, it gets like nasty.
Yeah.
And it makes you look like that you're like a serial killer.
Yeah.
Because there's just blood everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then it's not always red, right? It turns like black and then it turns like muddy. I've tried to power wash it, dude. It just is permanently stained.
It's done.
If we ever move away out of that house, like I'm going to have a long conversation with the guy that buys it. I'm like, man, I'm really sorry,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the other thing. It's kind of cool too. Like I for a while I was doing some construction and I had a buddy that like, they had this nice kitchen counter that they were just going to throw away. I'm like, man, I would totally put that in my garage. Mm-hmm. So I have this nice counter. It's always nice to have some, with 5 kids, we've got baby wipes all the time. So I've always got some bleach, Clorox and some baby wipes, clean it off really good before you start.
Yep.
And, I've got a couple lights. It's always good to have good light.
Yep, exactly.
It seems like if you had good light, you know where your fingers are.
Yep.
So you're not cutting your fingers.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I'll just crank that deer up and down, as I go. One thing that we didn't get to show that's kind of, I don't know if many people do it this way or not, but actually I saw my neighbor Jerry do this years ago, and I'm like, now that's a good idea. One of the things that he does is, and I've really started to do it now, and you might have seen it in the background. I have a little hand torch. This little, like, I don't know, blow torch, I guess you could call it or something.
Yep.
But I'll start at the legs, take it off the back legs, go down the back of the leg towards the middle, and then I'll just start pulling it down and taking it down. And I'll usually have the ear lower down so it's kind of right in front of me, and then I'll raise it back up. But what I'll do as I start to take the hide off is I will just take that torch and I'll burn all the hair off.
Yep.
And you don't have to do much. You could see the hair just singe right down.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't really affect the meat at all.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll see there's like that little clear filament type stuff that's all over the meat. It'll just kind of like crinkle that a little bit, but it's a great way to get all the hair off, because the reality is hair is going to get on there.
Oh yeah.
That blowtorch really works pretty good.
Yeah.
It says a little canister and works great.
Yep, we do the exact same thing when we're cutting them up at home. We always have one guy on the torch the entire time. And another thing about that too is if you cut it from the neck down, it's 10 times more hairier.
Oh yeah, I bet.
It's crazy. It's insane, the difference.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is when you start from the back legs and then go down, the hide naturally just ends up falling on itself.
Yeah.
So it kind of just like keeps it in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I definitely notice like on the front legs, when I do the front legs and I go up, and if I'm doing it for a shoulder mount, try to be careful about your cuts the right way. But when you start taking that off, it just seems like there's just a lot more, I don't know about loose hair, but around the neck,
it's just like
front legs.
It like feels like it's just like exploding. Just hair everywhere.
Yeah.
But no, the blowtorch thing is huge. If you're cutting it up yourself, it feels like almost a necessity.
Yeah.
Like it really works good. We do the same exact thing.
Yeah. And then I've kind of gotten to the point now where once I get the hide all the way down, if I'm not trying to save anything like for a mount or anything, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take it all the way down past its front legs, past its neck, down to the base of the head.
Yep.
You can kind of feel on the back of their head, they've kind of got that spot. If you remove their head, you kind of feel where it all kind of hinges.
Yep.
You can go in right there and then go around and then just kind of snaps that right off. Snaps that right off.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, and I don't know if it's like what it's like in every state, but I know in Iowa, it'd be interesting to know what it's like in Wisconsin. In Iowa, you can put deer carcasses with your garbage. So, which is nice because I think what I know, and it's funny because I've done that forever. Like I don't ever like just go dump a deer, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't really have like my own land that's like I have a place. I know buddies that have like their own spots the landlord's like, oh, just go throw it in the carcass pile. I don't have that.
Yeah.
So I've always done, even when I was going to college at Iowa State, dude, if you could imagine me cutting deer up at my house, at my apartment when I was going to college, that was pretty funny. Yeah. You want to get flicked off.
Yeah.
Drive down the highway in a Nissan Maxima with the deer. I will put up that picture because I have a picture of it. We'll put that up right here. It's pretty funny. But I would drive down the highway, come back into Ames with a deer strapped on between the back windshield and the spoiler of this Nissan Maxima. If you did it, the legs would fit just perfect. And then you could put a rope through the car and tie it off and it would just stay.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't ever really understand at first, but oh man, people get mad.
Yeah, we last year we did that too, and we had freaking trucks everywhere, but we just decided to throw it on the car instead. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. But no, like you said, what I was getting to there is what I'll do is I'll take it down to the head, and then I always take you just go to like a Menards or a hardware store, get those really thick trash bags, the thick ones. They're always usually in like a nice red box.
Yeah.
There's like 10 or 20 in a roll, and I'll roll that down to make it nice and so it's easy to handle. And then what I like to do is I like to put the hide in the bottom of that trash bag.
Yeah.
Just keeps it from getting poked and broken.
Yeah.
And I kind of spread that hide out really nice if I'm not using it, kind of lay the head in there. And then I usually take off front legs first. And then front legs first, put them on the table. Then I'll go to back straps right away, figure out right where their back leg stops and the back strap starts, cut there, go down the middle, and then just pull those back straps out.
Yep.
A lot of times then I'll turn them over, do the loins quick, set those out. And then I've got like a little handsaw, like a little bone saw that's like got a T handle that I can, I think it's made by like Outdoor Edge or something, make a little pack.
Yeah.
It's pretty handy.
Yeah, they do. It is Outdoor Edge.
Yep. Take out the neck meat, all the neck meat that I can get off. And then I'll usually take that neck vertebrae section, I'll cut that off.
Yeah.
So I can get that in the bag. And then I'll cut right behind where the ribs stop. I'll cut that off and get that in the bag. And then there's usually like about, 6-8 inches of vertebrae before those hind legs. I'll cut that off.
Yeah.
Now all I really have is just 2 back legs hanging there.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times what I do is I'll take them off the hooks and I'll set that on the table, let the legs splayed out, take off the legs actually, and then start cutting through that pelvic and cutting on the back and just taking that pelvic section out, vertebrae and all that.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that's exactly how we do it too.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun for us. I mean, we always kind of have a big crew doing it because we kind of make a deal out of it during gun season and stuff. And we'll have a couple deer to cut up, and it seems like everybody kind of gets their rolls that night, you know.
Yeah.
you got one couple guys skinning, a couple guys sitting at the tables, deboning them and cutting them up and stuff like that, guy bagging them up. It's a really fun time, actually.
So that's one question I had for you is when you guys debone, do you guys debone based on the cuts of meat, or do you guys just debone and go, all this is going to hamburger, all this is going to sticks, all this is going to sausage?
Mainly
or
like
do you
that.
do you go like, oh, there's the eye of the round steak over here?
No, we don't do it like that.
Okay.
A lot of times what we do is we honestly just cut everything up and make it into hamburger.
Got it.
Anyways, grind it all up.
Got it.
So yeah, we basically just get all the meat that we can and cube it up a little bit. You know, don't leave it in huge chunks, but get it in nice chunks so it goes through the grinder a little bit easier. Because that's one difference between me and you is you take yours to get yours all made up, and my dad does it all on his own.
Yep.
It's something that he's really kind of became obsessed with the last couple of years. So it's been really cool to watch him kind of learn it, because it's not really that easy, honestly.
No.
And so yeah, he's really gotten into that, and it's been really fun. Just because it's cool to have it all be through us, and I honestly wish I was, kind of more part of it. But it's kind of his deal a little bit, and yeah, he really enjoys it a lot. It's kind of his thing now. I think that's like his favorite part about hunting is, kind of being that guy.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's awesome. It's really cool.
No, absolutely. That's actually kind of a funny story. I used to process my own deer. I used to actually, my neighbor Jerry had a meat grinder that he'd let me borrow, and I did that.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny because my wife Tatum she's like a saint, and she really like puts up with me. I mean, all the crazy ideas and my obsessive compulsive personality of laser focus on certain things. And I was bound and determined. I saw this thing of a guy that I don't even know where I saw it, but he did Ziploc bags, 1 pound deer hamburger that he mixed with like 80-20, which is what I do when I go to the meat locker. But he just went and bought 80-20, and then he mixed it with his deer meat, and then he put it in Ziploc bags. But what he did is he flattened the bags, flattened them. He weighed them in 1 pound, and then he put them in a Ziploc, and he flattened them real nice, and he stacked them up. Well, the crazy thing is I wish I could find the video, but this was forever ago. I remember him opening his freezer, and he had it looked like a library of deer meat. It was like, he had like all these stacks of meat, and I'm like, what a great idea.
That is actually a great idea.
Yes,
honestly.
dude. And it was Ziploc bags, 1 pound packages. And he's like, you got to buy the freezer bags because they got a better zipper. You weigh out the 1 pound little ball, put it in the bag, and then you just smash it flat. Make sure the air's out. You just keep smashing it. And then you just start stacking them. And literally, they were like, so when it was all done, they were perfectly flat. I had like a whole deer in like this stack in the freezer. And
That's a really good idea.
When Tatum wanted it, she just went in there, she just grabbed it. And I was like, heck yeah.
Well, especially like if you don't have like a chest freezer or something, it's like perfect.
Yes. And honestly, dude, you don't realize how much space you lose when it's in a roll.
Yeah.
Like when it's in a roll, you lose a ton of space because it's not like the roll is just like a perfect edge. It's rounded and then it gets smaller.
And with the rolls, I feel like you're just tossing them in there too.
Yes.
Like it's not ever organized,
yes,
really.
I know, exactly. Dude, I'm telling you, and he just stacked them all up. So that's what I did. So there was like a couple seasons where that was the MO. I was like, heck yeah, here we go, baby. So I would shoot deer, and then I would cut them all up in the garage, but then I would do it in the house. I would come in the house. Well, we still have little kids, but we had really little kids. I mean, we've had little kids for a while. So we had littles then too.
Yeah.
Well, if you can imagine me in the kitchen, and my wife does not really enjoy the smell of like meat, right? She doesn't enjoy the smell of venison.
Yeah.
She doesn't enjoy the smell of a ribeye. She just doesn't like the smell of meat, which is fine. So if you can imagine me in the kitchen over the sink with the grinder going, I think it's just roaring, right? And I've got this pile of like meat in the sink, and then there's hamburger over here, and there's blood, and there's dirty, paper towels. And my wife, she's like, babe, I don't ask for much. And I'm like, no, you don't. She's like, I'm drawing the line in the sand. she's
Yeah.
like, no more.
Yeah.
She's like, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it in the garage. Like, we can't be doing this in the house. One, it's making a ton of noise. Two, it makes your house smell terrible. She's like, she's like, it just makes me want to like gag.
Yeah.
She's like, I just got to do something different.
Yeah.
So that's when I started processing meat at the meat locker. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should try that whole Ziploc bag thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I didn't even really think of that was a thing, but yeah, I used to process it, and now I don't.
Yeah.
Because it just then I tried to do it in the garage. Well, I don't have running water.
Yeah.
And man, it's tricky.
Yeah.
When you can't just like wash yourself off quick, or like you don't have. It's like a sink is pretty handy.
Yeah.
To put the meat in, to put over here, to mix it up, and it just got to be I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Dad's got a grinder, and it looks real old school. It's got a big red wheel on it.
Yeah.
It's all I don't know, cast iron or something.
Cast iron. Yeah.
And
they got like the big mallet that you stick in there and it helps it go down.
Yep, and it's all got this. It's got a big, huge wheel on it where it's got a handle where you can.
Yes.
But it's very hard to do. And
that's
so
like the old school way of doing it.
It's really old school. It's a cool looking thing, but he went down to the farm and got a little electric motor off of a hay elevator.
Oh yeah.
And then got a belt that would work for the wheel on the grinder, and then he hooks it up to the hay elevator.
He's got an auger motor on there, basically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he plugs that thing in, and there she goes.
There you go, baby. That's the big thing. If you're going to buy a grinder, you got to buy one that's got some horsepower.
Yeah.
Because one thing about venison is there's just tendons.
Yeah.
Whatever they call the you know what I'm talking about. Just like the little strands of meat, the clear stuff. It plugs it up.
Yeah, and I don't know how well it actually worked, because I feel like there was one time he came into the house and he's just dripping sweat.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he ended up having to do it by hand at one point.
Oh yeah, it's a job.
Yeah. But yeah, so we just do everything in hamburger, and he'll case them up and make brats out of it and stuff. And the one downside is like we don't do any sticks or anything like that, and I love deer sticks a lot, so that's like kind of the one downside. But it's still cool to see him do it and really, really like it. But.
Yeah. Well, even for me, it's been even kind of an iteration of how I've done the meat locker thing, because after I stopped processing it myself, well, then I was like, well, man, all I need somebody to do is grind it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I get somebody to grind it. I can put it in the bags. So then I found a meat locker that did deer meat. And I said, guys, listen, I just got a real random request. I'm like, can you just grind it for me?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll mix it up. I said, heck, I'll buy the hamburger from you. You know what I mean? I just need it ground up. And he's like, yeah, man, that's fine. And he's like, next time you shoot a deer, don't freeze it. Just keep it thawed out if you can. Keep it in the fridge. Call me. And the next day, like come towards the end of the night. And he's like, I'll just grind it.
Yeah.
Dude, you want to watch? It was like watching Michael Jordan. Let me say it again. Dude, you want to watch something pretty cool? It was like watching Michael Jordan do like a 360 dunk. Because, I mean, he put all that meat in there and it just like, dude, he didn't have the plunger thing. He just like turned it on. It just all came out the other end. I'm like, well, that was easy. And he's like, yeah. He's like, we don't mess around.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just like threw it right through. I was like, dang.
Yeah.
So, but I did that for a few years. But now I literally just take, if I get a deer processed, if I'm not donating it to Hush, if I'm getting a deer processed for myself or for Susie or Sheila or anybody else, any friends or family, or it's a random person that lets me know, I take it to a locker.
Yeah.
Not too far away from Clear Lake.
Yeah.
Shameless plug, Elma Meat Locker. If you're ever in Iowa, you better check it out.
Insanely good meat sticks.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They have got some good, and that's, it's funny. It's like, there's a couple things that kind of drew me to that locker. One, their reputation. They had a great reputation about that. If you took your deer meat, that you got your deer meat back. And then I had some of the deer sticks, and I was just like, this doesn't even seem real. Like, I'm like, this is deer meat, right? They're like, yeah, dude. And like the seasonings that they use, and they do all these different flavors. You can get pineapple, you can get cheddar, jalapeno.
Yeah.
You get regular, you can get hot, you can get mild. It's just like, the list goes on and on.
Good.
I got one year that had cranberries in them.
I've had that before too.
Dude.
Unreal.
Dude. And then the ones I swear by now, it sounds so crazy, barbecue. Basically just tastes like meat candy. Literally. It tastes like you're eating a deer stick and you've got like a really good sucker that you're just kind of like, you're biting the meat and then you're licking the sucker. Like it's just so good, dude. It literally tastes like meat candy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love going to the Alma Meat Locker. That's like my place.
Yeah.
But one thing that we were kind of joking about, and then you'll see in the video as well, is that I use. I've been doing this for years as well. And I don't know how it came up. I think I was actually like at Menards one day, and I was like just walking down the Tupperware aisle, and I saw these containers that were, I don't know, what do you think they are? They're probably like 14, 16 inches wide.
Yeah,
long. I mean,
yeah,
probably like like this long. They're like this wide. They're like this deep.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, that would work good. Those would fit on the shelf of my freezer. That's now broken. We'll get into that. But those would fit on my freezer really good. Or my chest freezer that I got in the basement. They'd fit in there just nice.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing. I started just putting all my loose meat after I take it off the bone. I would put it in those plastic containers. They're literally 94 cents.
Yeah.
Now with the way things are, it's probably like $1.75. But at the time, they were like 94 cents. And you get the container, you get the lid. Some of them have these little plastic little clips that hold it shut.
Yeah.
And man, that's handy. I literally just start buying them by the stacks.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Even we went to the Alma Locker the other day. Not the first thing. One of the things the guy said is he's like, well, that's a good idea. He's like, I wish everybody would bring it like that. He actually said when we were there that he said that people bring in their deer meat in trash bags.
Just gross.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, we accept it. But he's like, he said they were kind of talking about not accepting it.
Yeah. And he said if they do, he said they keep that meat for dead last so it doesn't accidentally get mixed in with anybody else's.
Yes.
Just because it's
such a nightmare.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was like, but he said, he's like, that's a good idea. And I was like, man, that works pretty great. I explained it to him. He's like, yeah. And it's funny. They say that every time I go there.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is they're 94 cents. So when they're froze solid.
Yeah.
And then I don't take them out of the freezer till I go there. I just grab them out of the freezer, load them in the back of the truck, load them inside Alma Locker when I get there.
Yeah.
Wham, bam, there you go. And I just tell them like, dude, just when you're done with the cooler, just break it and throw it away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. I don't want it back. Because so many guys like, oh, I want my cooler back. Oh, when am I going to get the cooler back?
Yeah.
I don't care. It's just 94 cents. Like, keep it.
Yeah.
And they love that because then they probably, when they put it on their thing, they just, once they thaw that meat out, they just all goes on the table and off into the dumpster.
Right.
Whoop-de-doo.
Right.
So that works out great.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're talking about, your dad doing, hamburger and doing brats. That's one thing. I never get brats. But again, that's the thing about when you get meat processed is when you start doing brats and breakfast sausages and things like that, even deer sticks.
Yeah, it gets expensive.
Man, it gets spendy fast.
Yeah.
Like Susie went all out on a deer, I think 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
She went all out. She did brats. She did breakfast sausage sticks, deer sticks, some hamburger.
Breakfast patties.
Oh, dude. I don't even know. It was expensive. I told him, like, Suze, that's going to cost you. She's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. And it did. It did. I think it was upwards of like $500, $600. Like, it was like, I think they gave her like a hat or something. They were like, you were like the big spender. You know what I mean?
She got her picture on the wall.
Yeah, she got some balloons. She's like, why did you hand me balloons when I walked? You're like, oh, you'll see. Yeah, but
Cha-ching.
yeah, but so it can get a little spendy.
Yeah.
But again, that's the nice thing too about for me, like the way I do things when I'm giving a lot of deer meat away. I've really gotten to the point now where it works out good. I usually try to do 2 deer per person. So if like I've got a buddy Mike, he'll ask for some. Hey man, guys, I need some deer sticks. I'm like, hey Mike, let's just do 2 deer. That seems like it works better. It's a good amount. You know what I mean? And you get a good amount back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh, I only need 1, fine. But I'll try to do 2. Alma's a good 45-minute drive away, so it's nice to take a couple there at a time rather than one.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah. One thing I wanted to say too is I forgot to mention this, but so my Uncle Zip, he's been on the podcast before. He's kind of a legend.
kind of a legend. I don't mean to laugh that he's not a legend. I just think it's funny because, just to clarify, Uncle Zip or Zip is also Ben. So 3 different people, same
guy, 2 names. Yeah. But anyway, he has a big shop, and before it was totally finished, you could see all the beams and everything like that. And he had the same hand crank that Cole had. And so it was like the exact same thing.
Like a pulley system.
Yep, exactly. That just ran across the ceiling. And, you could only get 1 deer on there at one time. So, it kind of made it a little bit hard. But once he finished it, he ended up building, we call it the buck pole.
Oh.
And it's just an A-frame type deal with the same hand crank on it.
Yeah.
And we can get, way more deer on there now. And it's really nice because he made it wide enough so you could back the truck in.
Yep.
And then just crank it right up from there. But what's really nice about it is you can move it. And so it's like, you know, his shop is heated. So like during the winter and stuff like that, you don't want that in there having it be in the heat. So during the winter, we just pull it outside and hang the deer up outside. So it's kind of like our own cooler, like you were kind of talking about a little bit. So
Yeah.
it works really nice. And that's where we always hang all of our deer is down at Zips. So
Yeah.
works really well.
Yeah, you know, my my brother-in-law Justin, he actually tried something different last year to what we're describing right there, right? He's got a shop, and he saw a thing, and I'd seen this too before. I just never tried it. And he was hunting with his boys, youth hunting, and I think Wyatt shot a deer first, and then Marshall shot one later. Well, I think it was Marshall's deer, but what he did is he just had a rope and he had rafters in his garage, and he hung it up by the head, right? So the head was at the top. And then what he did is he put like an eye bolt in the floor.
Yep.
Okay. And then I think he like tied down the legs into that eye bolt. So the deer was just basically hanging like very in a vertical position.
Yeah.
And then, but before he got the deer all the way hung up, he cut around the neck, kind of like behind the ears, and then got around the back of its, like, you know, back of its neck. And he put like a golf ball, and he put the hide, laid it over the golf ball. And then he put a chain or like a cable or something around it. So it basically kind of made like a knot. And then he had already gone around the front legs, gone up, and made it so that it would just basically, when he started it would all just pull off.
Yeah.
Same thing down the middle so that it would all just go. And then he has a tractor. So then he literally just, I think it was a chain, and then he just connected that little cable to that chain. And then he literally just very, very slowly, I think he just started to kind of back up. And then I don't know if he just moved his bucket or if he just backed up. But literally, dude, he said that hide came off that deer like lickety split, like it wasn't even there. I mean, it was just like woof, and it was all off. It was basically after its ears down was completely gone.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because the place that like for example, 2 years ago, during youth season, it was super hot. We just didn't have time to cut it up. So we ended up actually taking it to a place in our hometown.
Yeah.
And we were there kind of hanging out and just talking to the guy or whatever. And he's like, hey, do you guys want to see how fast I can skin this deer? He did the same thing, and he hooked it up to his Ranger. But he didn't go slow with it, though. He just stepped on it. It was like 2 seconds.
It's not funny to laugh.
And it just pulled it right off, and the deer's swinging back and forth. I'm like,
whoa. It pulled it off to the hooves.
Yeah, it was like perfect.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen a deer skin so perfectly.
And I think you can do it different ways. You can just have it by the head and then just let it kind of pull.
Yeah.
Or I think you can hook it up on both ends and then it just kind of pulls off.
Yeah.
And I think Justin kind of connected it on both ends.
Yeah.
But yeah, it pulls off fast.
Yeah, it was actually really insane.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense though, because those guys during gun season, oh my gosh, the amount of deer that they get, I mean, you have to be able to do it quick to be able to keep up, you know?
Well, that's like even that Elma Meat Locker.
Yeah.
They have a separate building. It's really, really cool. We should have videoed that, but it's got a pretty cool setup there where they've got a separate building that they've got these walk-in coolers.
Yeah.
And when it gets to be season, or when it finally gets to not be 100 degrees, and it's not costing them arm and leg to keep that thing cool, they'll have that thing cranked, and they'll have the door unlocked 24/7, so you can drop them off day or night.
Yeah.
Which ends up being a night a lot of times for me. I'll just be there. I get done hunting, and if I'm fortunate enough to get one, then it ends up the back of the truck, and then I just head over there quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you get there, I haven't seen it, but I've heard that when it gets to be the gun seasons in Iowa, like
oh my gosh,
first shotgun, that it gets to the point where they'll have them stacked.
Oh, I believe it.
Like floor to ceiling, the whole cooler.
Yep.
Like it doesn't even look real. You're like, you walk in, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, hush deer, and also just guys because that's the thing about a lot of these meat lockers too. I mean, I have some buddies that I know that they'll just take the whole deer in, and they'll do it for you. They'll skin it for you. They'll do it all for you if you want to. They'll charge you for it.
Yeah.
But you can just have it all done if you want to.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, I think the big thing about this conversation is the fact that I think that I know even now in the last couple of months, like we spend a lot of time thinking about hunting, We spent a lot of time looking at our trail cameras. We spent a lot of time talking about where we're going to go, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. But I think this is important because that's only really half of it. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole other half of this thing, and it's the processing and preparing and eating that venison, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you and I and a lot of guys, men and women, do take a lot of pride in that part of it. So I think it's kind of cool to talk about kind of how we've done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right or wrong or indifferent.
Yep.
You know? And I think, like I said, hopefully we shed some light on the fact of, you know, you got to be careful, because if you're not careful, meat can spoil.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got to do the right things. And maybe this sounds weird to say, but I kind of almost feel like be respectful to that animal's life that you took.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because, you know, back in the day, you know, however far back you want to go, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, we all really enjoy the antlers.
Yeah.
Do you follow me?
Yeah.
But it's interesting when you're out there and you look at predators, you look at coyotes, you look at wolves in Western states.
Yeah.
You look at a fox in Iowa or whatever it is, like they leave the antlers.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually it ends up the squirrels eat them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's funny because they'll take everything else but that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's
a wolf's not going to pass a 2.5-year-old deer.
Yeah. And again, they don't like go to the antlers and look at them first.
No.
They're like looking for the, you know, whatever they're looking for.
Yeah.
They're looking to, you know, fill their belly. So I don't know. And I think when you look at back in human history, like, I don't know.
I mean, probably more the same way.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. I think it's like they were out there for the meat.
Yeah. Exactly.
They were out there because it helped them survive. And it's not like any of us can't miss a meal or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's awesome to be able to provide for my family, you know, and to be able to have meat. And I really enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think it's like a lot of what we talk about too, you know, like we've said, like it sounds like a broken record, but this is just how we do it. And like, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Really. You know?
Well, it'd be really interesting too, like in the comments of this, whether it's on YouTube or, man, even just send us an email, shoot us a call. Like, I'd be interested to know different ways that other people do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't think that we know everything. Just like I was talking about the whole field dressing.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely learned something new that day, and now that's how I do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been with buddies now that are like, all right, man, show me how you do this thing.
Yeah.
You know, because I just do it a little different.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Maybe I'm hoping too. It's kind of tough because like you got to be careful of what you can and can't show on YouTube and but it would be really cool to be able to show how you do that and to show how you cut up a deer, to show how you cape it out for a head mount. Like, it'd be really awesome to try and show some of that, because obviously with you being a guide and stuff, I think you probably know how to do it pretty well.
Well, and I think the cool thing too is like we can post it on our website and do whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
true.
Yeah,
True.
Well, I think we've talked about that. I think we will do some of those types of videos.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
You know, I mean, and that's a whole other thing we didn't even get into is, you know, like we're real fortunate in Iowa where most of the time we can pull a truck up or pull a side-by-side up or four-wheeler or drag it out to the road.
Yeah.
But you get in a lot of Western states and sometimes even in Iowa, you know, it gets, and it gets to be where you're having to quarter stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
you can't just get it out of there very easy. So you're having to quarter stuff. Well, are you leaving the hide on? Are you leaving the hide off?
Yeah.
Are you deboning it or you're not deboning it?
Yeah.
You know, like you start talking about game bags and you start talking about getting meat off a bone and then trying to cool it down and then trying to keep it cool.
Right.
You might have to keep it cool in some cases for days.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you got to keep it out of the sun. You got to keep it away from the bugs. You know, I mean, there's a whole nother aspect of it that we haven't even really gone into.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah. Which I think it's something that we definitely could in the future.
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. But like you said, I guess the point of me saying that part is that there's just a lot to it.
Yeah.
And I think that, And if anybody listening to this wants to send us some, you know, deer venison that they, you know, some new sticks they want us to try, or, you know, if you could have Walt bring some of those, get some of those brats, I'd definitely like to try those.
He would love that.
Yeah.
He'd be jazzed up about that.
I'll tell you what, I'm probably going to get first deer of the season back next week. They said at Elma they were going to be doing it like today. And I was going to have that hamburger back.
Let's go.
Getting a little stingy in the freezer.
I don't know how.
Huh?
I don't know how you are.
Well,
I guess you got 5 kids.
Well, it's 5 kids, and we didn't even tell the whole raccoon story. Let's go into that real fast.
Yeah, real quick.
Okay. So I got a cooler in the garage. I got a cooler in my garage. Well, Jet was for sure that there was a raccoon in the garage. He was for sure there was a raccoon. And I'm like, bro, there's not a raccoon in the garage. And he's like, yo, there is. Oh, there's one in there. And I'm like, Jetty, there's not a raccoon. Well, stuff in the garage kept getting knocked down. First, I kind of thought it was just him playing a trick on me. You know what I mean? Like just trying to get me to buy him a box trap or something. Well, then before you know it, so then I was leaving the garage doors open because it's nice to like kind of let air flow through there. It just kind of gets how it gets in there. Like my garage is a pretty just basic electric and that's it. Like I'm not cooling it, I'm heating it. It just gets a little muggy in there. So I had tried to keep the garage door, the back door open, a little airflow at night, keep it nice and cool. Well, all of a sudden I thought, okay, stuff's getting knocked down. It's kind of getting into the bird seed. Like there's got to be more to this. So I put down the garage door and I closed the door in the night. Come out there the next morning, everything's knocked over. And then I saw raccoon poop and I'm like, oh crap. So I'm like, we do have a raccoon. Well, I don't have a box trap. So I tracked down a box trap. Well, it had been walking on my countertop, right? This countertop that I have where I cut up the deer. So I thought, all right, bro, I'm going to get you. So we have a dog. So you always hear raccoons will eat anything but dog food. I'm like going for dog food. So I put a little thing of dog food in there. Jetty's all excited. We're setting this trap and set it in the evening, come out the next morning, maybe like the second night. And sure enough, there's the raccoon. And it's a big raccoon. Like it's not a baby raccoon. This is like a boar. You know what I mean? Like you could tell that he's the man, been living in the oak tree, coming down in here, doing his thing at night. Like he's been in there. Well, he didn't stay on the countertop. I didn't think that far ahead. Well, what he ended up doing is at first he could get his little arm out there trying to grab anything he could. Well, somehow I've got a little surge bar right there, the freezer plugged in. Just so happened that I just cleaned the freezer out. You know, I just cleaned it out most of the way. There was a little bit left, but the door was shut. Well, he had unplugged the freezer and then he decided to stick it to me. He chewed through the cord like he was gonna like, you know, figure out how to notch his way out of that on that cage. He chewed through the cord. I mean, he chewed through the whole thing. It was like the ground wire and everything. There was nothing left, dude. It was unsalvageable. I don't know how to run electrical, so I'm gonna have to go buy a new 3-prong. It was terrible.
I'll do it for you.
Oh, dude. You know how to do that?
So easy.
Really?
Nah.
That's what I figured, see? And then he threw the cage on the ground and he rolled it around the garage a while. It was just a whole mess. And there was raccoon poop everywhere and it was dog food everywhere. And I just figured he would just sit in there and wait for me. But yeah, he wasn't having it. So my freezer in the garage is out of commish right now.
So your freezer in the house is extra full.
Extra full. And we've really tried to do a number on it this summer because I was like, okay, dude, I need some freezer space. So I've really been tapping in.
Yeah.
Actually, we were talking about that too. I got a buddy that he doesn't call backstraps. He calls them tips.
Tips.
Hey, Cole, you got any of those deer tips? You could take some of those deer tips if you get some in.
I made some tips that you gave me.
I gave you some tips. They actually said tips on them.
I made them.
Yeah. I'm telling you, start calling deer backstraps tips.
I'm a horrible, horrible, horrible chef though.
Really?
I'm really bad at it.
Did they not taste good?
No, they tasted great. But you should have.
Dude, here's the key.
It was like a hurricane went through. Freaking, there was stuff everywhere. Oh, man.
Dude, here's how easy it is. Here's what you do. Just to make it a little better, take 3 tablespoons of butter. Take 3 tablespoons. Get a pan on your oven really hot. Super hot. Super hot. Throw that butter in there. Melt the butter. Get it so hot it's going to like light your house on fire. Take the tip and then just sear each side of the tip really hard for like a minute. I mean, sear it like you're, trying to cast it to hell. Sear it real good, okay? Sear it good. Flip it. Sear it again. You can even sear the sides if you really want to get after it, okay? Maybe put the lid on so it doesn't smoke out your whole kitchen. Sear it real good. Then turn your oven on to 190, 200. Take a little bit of olive oil, put it on a flat pan or on a piece of tin foil, okay, on a pan. And then put that backstrap on there, put a little olive oil on the backstrap, put whatever type of seasoning you want on there. Just pour a bunch of it on there, like extra. Seasoning's really good, extra seasoning. Cook it on 200 for an hour, flip it, 200 for an hour, take it out and eat it.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I did.
Couldn't have been, because if you did that, it would have been awesome.
It was.
Oh, well then what did you do that's so bad?
Well,
the searing part.
No. I'm just telling you, you know how I am on a daily basis.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a hurricane through my kitchen.
It wasn't a hurricane. It was a hot mess.
Dude, there was just like stuff everywhere.
How? I just described like 9 things that you needed.
That's why I'm a bad chef.
First, you don't call yourself a chef. You're just a cook. I don't think you're not even good enough to be the chef. There's only one guy in the kitchen that's the chef. That's definitely not you.
We should do an Ozonics Killerwinds episode and just cooking backstraps and then have a taste test.
Cooking tips. Just watching you try to cook tips. That would be bad.
It'd be really funny. I could get like a big white hat.
Oh, that would be funny. Or we do it near Halloween. We could find you a witch hat. You could wear a witch hat.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think you're just too much of a hot mess for cooking.
Oh, it's so bad.
See, I bet what you try to do is see I think people do when they try to start cooking is they just think, I'm going to cook it faster by cooking it hotter. That's not a good way. That's how you burn stuff. You got to just take your time. You got to be patient.
I can't remember. It was kind of a long time ago.
All right, well, let's just end this thing.
I'll put a picture of it on there. I got pictures of it. So
It tasted good but looked bad.
phone eats first.
What's that?
Phone eats first.
Phone eats first. What's that mean?
Then we eat. That's what the kids say these days.
I don't think that's true.
It is. It means you take a picture of whatever you're eating first, so the phone eats first.
Oh my gosh, I can't keep up with these slang things, you young people.
You got to get with the times, man.
I guess. All right, well, that's it. Another podcast in the book. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Thanks for watching.
See you next week.
Try the recipe that I just described. It's really good, and don't ruin it like Nick did.
Overreacting. It was good. All right.
Over and out. That's it. Done.